joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast.
You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back. Dan Eleff joins us. He's the founder of Dan's Deals. They're known for great deals, but he also has covered and uncovered some stories, especially regarding airlines and how they treat Jews. And he's on the forefront of getting some of these stories out to the public. And it just was revealed, and I know, Dan, welcome, that it was revealed that a Spanish plane kicked off 50 Jewish kids, about 10 to 12, 13 years of age, arrested their director for singing Hebrew songs. Welcome. What's going on? Is the world going crazy?
It's a pretty crazy.
It's in plain sight.
It's a pretty crazy story. Yeah, this is really unprecedented to have this many kids that were traveling, and then their director gets violently arrested, handcuffed. We don't know exactly what happened on the plane. I haven't seen any video of what happened on the plane. And when I generally investigate these stories, I like to talk to the passengers. So when I investigated the Lufthansa story, some 5 years ago, where they kicked over 100 Jews off the plane from getting on their next flight because of some mask non-compliance, we had lots of videos, and we had Lufthansa supervisors saying it's the Jews causing the problem. So we had a lot of evidence, and we had a lot of people to talk to. In this case, we haven't seen much evidence there, so we don't know exactly what happened on the plane. There are no.
So let's start from the beginning. The name of the airline is Vueling Airlines. Is that correct? Pronounced correctly?
Yeah. Vueling Airlines out of Spain. They used to fly to Israel before October 7th. They suspended that route. Since then, they have no intention of returning. It's indefinitely suspended. So they're sister airlines with British Airways and Iberia. They're all part of the same company. And this company called IAG is owned by, the 25% owned by Qatar Airways, by the country of Qatar, actually. So that's who controls the airline, what's going on there.
So what happened? You have 50 kids, and the reason why there may not be any footage, didn't they take away the cell phones from all the kids?
That's actually why the director was arrested, was the police came on board this plane. The police were called on board the plane because of some alleged disruption that happened. And they demanded everybody's phones and that everyone delete everything on their phones. And the director's like, no, that's not acceptable. And then when she protested them taking away all their phones and taking away all their footage, she got arrested. She was handcuffed. And that was pretty traumatizing, I'm sure, for the kids involved.
Right. I saw some of the pictures, and they're 10, 12, very impressionable 13-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And what do they say? What does the airline say? I know you've tried, and I tried reaching out to the airline, couldn't get a hold of anybody, but there have been reports. What are they claiming happened?
Yeah, the airline put out a statement that they may have tampered with some equipment on board. It's unclear what that is. It may just be talking about some kids playing with the in-flight safety manual. It's unclear what they're referring to. There were reports that maybe there was some singing on board that we heard from a couple of non-Jewish parties who were on the plane next to this group, that they were very well behaved and nothing that you wouldn't expect from a group of preteen, young teens. So it's really hard to understand what exactly went wrong and why the plane went back to the gate and police were called on board to deboard them. All the other passengers were really surprised that happened because they didn't see any big disturbance. So as of yet, the airline hasn't made a good case of why this happened, other than just saying they were causing a disturbance, and they haven't justified that. And the eyewitness reports we've heard from haven't justified that either. So we'll see. This is an interesting case here.
So even if one kid was tampering or two kids, 50 kids they threw off the plane, collective punishment, even if and it doesn't mean that was indeed the case.
Right.
But what intrigues me, maybe they were forced off the plane because maybe they were sang Hatikva. That would be a crime on the airline. If they don't fly to Israel anymore, maybe singing Hatikva would be a crime punishable by expulsion from the plane.
Spain is a pretty anti-Zionist country these days, so wouldn't put that past them. We have seen some reports that maybe there was a Palestinian flag in the cockpit and the captain may have been anti-Semitic. I haven't seen anything. We don't know much facts here. We don't know many of the facts here, so we're just there's a lot of speculation so far.
But Israel's Minister of Diaspora Relations combating anti-Semitism, Amichai Chikli, got involved too, correct?
Yes, and he said this is one of the worst cases of anti-Semitism that he's seen in recent days, which is saying something because there's a lot of anti-Semitism these days. So, yeah, he's really attributing this all to anti-Semitism. I hate saying something is anti-Semitism without investigating further. So in the Lufthansa case, we actually had a Lufthansa supervisor saying it was the Jews causing the problems and all of the Jews had to be punished for the sins of a couple. That was like blatant anti-Semitism, and the U.S. Department of Transportation said that they had to pay a $4 million fine because it was, there was no question that was anti-Semitism. And we've had some other cases where I've investigated where American has thrown off 2 Orthodox parties off a flight, unrelated, because one of them was causing some problems. They just said they kicked them both off because they assumed that they were related. So that's an anti-Semitic case. In this case, I don't like saying it's anti-Semitism without knowing the facts, and we don't have video evidence right now.
But here are the facts, Daniel.
Yeah.
They stopped flying to Israel. Okay, that's a fact. You can't.
They're not alone. They're not alone.
They're not alone, but they're
flown either. So I don't want to say that Air Canada is anti-Semitic because they haven't flown. There are business reasons not to fly there.
Which airline?
Air Canada hasn't flown there. It hasn't flown to
Well,
Israel.
I'm in touch with Air Canada starting in October back to Israel.
Right, but that's been pushed off now a dozen times since October 7th. So they may or may not fly then.
I believe it may be a safety issue, but I happen to be in touch with Air Canada, and they're looking to restart, and they want a relation. In fact, they were the Jewish Travel and had an exhibition the other day. They were there too, showing their support. So I wouldn't call Air Canada anti-Semitic.
No, they're not alone. There's probably 15 other airlines that also haven't returned or don't have return plans yet. So,
but here's the facts. Here you have this particular airline stopped flying to Israel because of October 7th. Okay, and you have 50 Jewish kids that they've thrown off. You have a 21-year-old director who's French, who they violently arrest. They also banned from coming to Spain for 2 years.
And they also questioned her about her connections to Israel, which is disturbing. Yeah.
Okay, so that alone, that's her testimony.
Why are they questioning a French director of a camp that are flying from Valencia to Paris about her connections to Israel? Yeah, there are circumstantial problems here, without a doubt, and it may indicate anti-Semitism, without a doubt. But I don't think we know that for a fact yet, without knowing exactly what happened. And I hope those facts will come out. I hope there'll be.
And I'm looking at a picture which you published on Dan's Deals of this 21-year-old woman who's being handcuffed by the police. A violent.
There's a violent arrest.
Come on. What, for singing? Even if, let's say, some kid's vandalized, which I don't believe to be the case, you arrest a director in such a violent fashion? What's going on here? They alone should be prosecuted for it.
On planes, flight attendants and pilots have really fought to keep security cameras off of planes. After 9/11, they really wanted to put security cameras onto planes, and they didn't want to be held responsible for everything that happens on planes. So those unions really fought against having cameras. So we're not going to have CCTV footage from the plane. But I do think that the cops, the Spanish police that came on board will have, body cams. And I think we will see some evidence there of how these boys were acting on the plane, when they were deplaned, and what happened with its director, that it led to such a violent arrest in front of these young preteens and teenage kids. So we will learn more about that, if nothing else. But I am hopeful that we'll see more video from the plane. And if somebody is involved in a situation like this, the first thing you need to do is start recording, even though it may escalate the situation. So, be casual about it, hold the phone to your side, but do get it on video, because that's really what secures these cases and really can prove. And if anti-Semitism is a factor, you really do need video proof of it. And that's what will help. So I do hope that will come out in the coming days.
I would assume, Daniel, that in order to really get justice, you may have to sue the airlines. Right? Because that's the only way to get some justice here, because if they have to pay a penalty for it, otherwise they're going to claim, vandalism. We threw 50 kids off the plane. Vandalism. We arrested the director because she wouldn't give her phone. That requires you to be arrested violently by the police.
Yes. And I've heard from Mark Goldfelder, who was the lawyer in the Lufthansa case who got them to settle, that he is on the case already. He's looking into it. So hopefully there will be some losses happening there. I know that JJ's brother-in-law, Velvel Friedman, who successfully sued CNN for defamation, and he won that case. It was the first defamation lawsuit against a media company like that was won in, I think, half a century. He also said that he thinks that the airline statement is defamatory, just based on the eyewitnesses that we heard and what they're accusing them of. don't add up. And he offered to represent anybody who wants to sue in the U.S. to sue the airline as well, based on that defamation.
Daniel Eleff is our guest. He is the founder of Dan's Deals. They cover great deals, but he does a lot deal more than just Mitzvahs and bargains, and also uncovers some great unfortunate stories, including stuff with stories with airlines that discriminate against Jews. You mentioned Lufthansa. Let's go just for a few moments into what happened with Lufthansa.
Yeah, so that was about 5 years ago, where they had a lot of passengers that were going to Reb Shaila for his yard site in Karaster, and they didn't let anybody board their connecting flights to Karaster if they were Jewish. And this wasn't a group traveling together. They just decided they were going to ban every Jew from this flight. And one of the passengers smartly confronted a supervisor, and supervisor admitted that it's the Jews that caused the problems on the previous flight. And even though it's just a couple, everybody has to pay for that sin. And so therefore they took all the Jews off that flight. So they got in big trouble over that. They had to pay out a lot of money as a settlement, and also got fined by the US government, because the US government determined that was definitively anti-Semitic in nature.
Wow. But in other cases too, now here you had a large group, but there are other cases that I've heard in the last 6 months to a year of individuals also encountering anti-Semitism on some of these flights.
Yeah, and the major thing is, and a lot of these, I get pretty much since that Lufthansa case, which at Dan's Deals, we broke the story on that case, and because we interviewed everybody and got all the video, we found that video evidence and turned that into the government and to their lawyers. I think on a almost daily basis, we get stories of anti-Semitism. So I'm always hesitant to say that these are all anti-Semitism, and we rarely cover the stories, because a lot of times airlines just treat passengers poorly, right? So everybody has bad experience with the airlines, and not every case is going to be anti-Semitism. They just don't treat their passengers very well, and flight attendants don't have much going for them in some cases, and they like going on their power trips. So there are a lot of bad apples in the industry, and they're not necessarily anti-Semitic. So what I really try to do is find the proof that it is anti-Semitic. And often, if you don't have video evidence or at least audio evidence, it's going to be a he said, she said situation, and it's going to be hard to win a lawsuit like that.
We're sitting on a story from France of an individual who went through those machines. He took off his hat, and he was wearing a yarmulke. He was beaten by the security guards, a Muslim. And we were just waiting for him to recuperate, to come on the air to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly a case of anti-Semitism,
right?
Where his yarmulke was there and he was beaten. So
and this story with the camp, they told the kids beforehand, because they were nervous about flying on this airline, and I guess I don't know what happened on the inbound flight when they flew to Spain, but they told the kids, take off your yarmulkes, hide your tzitzis, take your tefillin and check it in your checked luggage so they don't see it. Like, this is crazy that this is Europe, 80 years after the Holocaust. And once again, they felt the need to completely hide the fact that they were Jewish. And despite doing all that, and these kids taking off their yarmulkes, which I don't believe in. I believe in being proud Jews, and also never check your tefillin under the plane of luggage, because you'll never see it again. It'll get lost or stolen, and you'll never get compensated for that. So definitely don't do that. But it's definitely a sad state of affairs that here we are, and they felt the need to do that. And despite doing all that, somebody sang a Hebrew song, and they get all thrown off the flight, and their director arrested. It's really unfortunate. Even if this can't be proven that is anti-Semitic, which
it smells and looks and tastes anti-Semitic. You can't say anything otherwise.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
By the way, with the film you mentioned, there came to mind is that when Israel was under siege and in the war with Iran, some people left Israel to go back to the United States through Jordan. And a lot of religious Jews, their tefillin was confiscated.
Yes.
They were called Yehud, and the tefillin were confiscated. So they never got it back. So I know some people that went to, I think, either Jordan or Egypt, and they they left the tefillin in Israel, and they wore,
My advice was for people that needed to leave ASAP was to go through Egypt, to go through Sharm el-Sheikh, because Egypt doesn't confiscate tefillin, but Jordan is known that if they find your tefillin, or especially if they catch you in tefillin, that they can confiscate it. So we might have peace with them, but they don't treat us that well. So that's why I advise people not to go through Jordan for that reason, because of the tefillin issue.
Exactly. But listen, it's important to speak out, and we have to mobilize people, because something these airlines should pay an economic price. If they take Jewish money, they took the money for the air flight. Didn't say, you're Jewish, we're throwing you off. Here's your money back. They didn't say that. They took their money, and on top of that, they discriminated against Jews. There has to be a price to be paid, and maybe these airlines. Well, Lufthansa. I don't believe Lufthansa at its core is anti-Semitic. I don't believe that. But this Spanish Airlines, which is a much smaller one, it's a discount airline. It does strike them that it's anti-Semitic, and the mere fact that they.
I can't speak to the core from this incident because it's unlikely that anybody higher up than the flight attendant or the captain of the plane made this call, right? This is pretty localized, where maybe the captain. I've heard a lot of rumors about this captain, and I don't want to comment on them because I haven't verified any of it. This is all a fresh story, and it's going to be developing. But there are rumors about the captain. It's possible that he was anti-Semitic. It's possible the crew was. I don't know that I would say the airline as a whole, because of this, is anti-Semitic, because this could happen in any airline, really.
But here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Air Canada and Lufthansa. They stopped. A lot of these airlines stopped flying to Israel after October 7th, and that was a safety issue for the most part. It wasn't. They said, well, Israel is a aggressor involved in genocide. We're not going to fly there. They did it because of safety concerns, and you and I can disagree. They say we're safe now to go, and we'll keep pushing it off. This airline, from what it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me that it would have to be more ideological than maybe safety, based on their how they're treating the kids that are singing Hebrew songs on the plane. Now, maybe it's an isolated incident due to this pilot. I'm just wondering if it's more to the core of the airline.
So, just looking at the other IAG airlines, so Iberia and British Airways also have suspended their flights. They're planning on returning perhaps in October, but they haven't committed to that really. It's a business decision at the end of the day. Is there enough traffic? Probably yes, but their unions might not want to. So I know that United, for example, would have returned at some points, but their unions refused. So unions are a factor when it comes to airline and Israel. If you can't get your crew to agree to fly to Israel, you don't have flights to Israel. So even if the leadership isn't anti-Semitic, the unions might be. So there's a lot going on at play there. There's also insurance coverage issues with some airlines, whether they can get their planes insured in a war zone, which Israel, it still is today. There's a lot of factors there. So I wouldn't necessarily say the airline's anti-Semitic. And this incident in particular, I don't think it went above. This call is the captain's call to make. So I don't think it went above his.
I certainly hope so.
I don't think the captain would call headquarters and ask permission. This is definitely within his realm to return to the gate and call the police without raising it above his level. So
the reason why I mentioned that too, Spain itself has become an anti-Israel country.
Yeah.
So the culture there is anti-Israel. So it wouldn't surprise me if it also.
I think Spain and Ireland have in particular been, egregiously anti-Semitic in their statements and their government statements. So yes, but at the same token, there are airlines. Air Europa, which is based in Spain, is flying to Israel. So it's not. I don't want to lump everybody together like that.
Okay.
Iberia and Vueling are not, but Air Europa is. They're flying Madrid to Tel Aviv nonstop right now. They're very fast at returning to Israel. So don't want to lump them all together like that.
I was wondering how Jewish travel to Spain, how affected it's been. I would assume probably less people want to go to Spain if you're Jewish.
Yes, I'm sure that's the case. And Ireland too. El Al discontinued their route to Dublin because of that, just a drop in demand.
Now, this particular story, these children were in Spain?
Yeah, they were taking a trip to Spain, a camp trip to Spain. They were returning home to France when they got thrown off the plane. I think that most of them have made it back by now, or perhaps all of them have made it back to Paris by now.
And the director was let go, the one who was violently let go, but she's banned from going to Spain for 2 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
I hope she brings a massive lawsuit.
I hope so too, and I really hope there is going to be video evidence that turns up. If you are in a situation like this where you do feel like something's happening, take out your phone, start recording. If you're scared to hold it up, your phone, just hold it by your side, even, and just have it recording. You'll even if you don't have the person who's committing anti-Semitic act on the video, but you'll hear the audio too if you have that video going. So definitely that should be your first instinct, is try to catch that video, and then you'll have the best case for it to prove your point, for your case.
Daniel Eleff of Dan's Deals, thank you for being with. Thank you for uncovering the story. The last time we had you on for an extensive interview, also had to do, wasn't with an airline story, but another one dealing with scams and Ponzi schemes, where you were part of our panel discussing some of these issues. And thank you for
we're looking out for our fellow consumers, whether it's a Ponzi scheme or airline anti-Semitism. We're here for you. You know, everyone can always reach out to me. My email is dan@dansdeals.com. I'm always happy to hear from readers and hear what we can look into.
Final question: what's the biggest deal out there today? In what category?
Everything you find on Dan's Deals is a great deal. Check it out daily. You won't miss a thing.
But I assume this airline will not be having a discount on Dan's Deals.
Probably not anytime soon. No.
Not anytime soon, unless that's part of the lawsuit settlement.
You know, like the Maldives, when they banned Israelis, we just stopped covering.
Absolutely. No, that's right. There should be a Jewish boycott of these companies if they're indeed proven to be anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. Why support these people? Why support these countries?
It's a big world out there. There's a lot of good places to go.
Where they want you. Don't go where they don't want you.
Yeah.
Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.